Hey, this is Jay from skylapser.com, and today we're going to take a look at how you can tell the difference between an aircraft, a satellite, or a meteor in your nighttime time lapses. Let's go to the screencast. Okay, what we have here is a rendered time-lapse movie from an all-sky time-lapse that I shot on, I guess it was July 8th and evening of July 8th and morning of July 9th in 2019. And this is from beautiful Taos, New Mexico at the Cielito Azul Observatory. So we'll just go ahead and play this short time-lapse here. And you can see we had about first quarter moon, and then the moon sets, and we see all kinds of things going pew, pew, pew across the sky here. We got a good view of the Milky Way and Jupiter just setting here, and we can see Andromeda, and we can see various things going pew, pew, pew around the screen here. And so we want to know which ones are actually aircraft and which ones are satellites and which ones are actually meteors. So I'm going to go here, and we're going to go break it down to the individual JPEG images, and that way we can step through this frame by frame, and then we can kind of look at some of the various frames and see what the difference is between what an aircraft trail looks like, or what a satellite trail looks like, or what a meteor trail looks like. So I'm going to just kind of step through this really quickly here, as far as until the moon sets here. That was just an aircraft passing there, of course, and we have some quite a few aircraft passing and quite a few satellites, of course, which are illuminated by the already setting sun. But I'm going to just go ahead and play this forward here just a little bit until we get past moonset, so we can see a little bit darker skies and have a little bit more contrast here. Okay, so now we have the moon set, and now the Milky Way is really standing out here. And so I'll kind of take my cursor around here, and so of course we've got an aircraft flying past here, and we can kind of tell that because it's got red or green lights, and also in the trail you can see that there's actually a blinking going on here. And so here, if we look at this aircraft trail here, is that this has the red and green anti-collision lights on the aircraft, and so when that goes over, we see that it is actually kind of, and there goes another aircraft, and again you can see that it's basically blinking. So aircraft are usually pretty straightforward. They're quite bright, and compared to most meteors and most satellites. And so we can see another aircraft going there across the bottom of the screen. And another aircraft. Now up here, which is to the north, I'm going to step back 2 frames. Okay. And so if we look at this, I'm going to advance a frame. I'm going to advance another frame. And that's gone. So this was only happened for a duration of during the 30-second exposure that I had, and this was a 30-second exposure with a 35-second interval. So this object only appeared in 1 frame of the video, and so this object is, I'm 99% sure, a meteor. And you can see that we have some coloration here, so that it's kind of a pinkish red coloration, which indicates what the meteor is actually made of. And I would have to actually look that up online to see what that color meant, what the meteor is made of. And then you can also see here at the end of the meteor trail is where the meteor basically disappeared. And they basically have a kind of taper at the beginning and a taper at the end, and sometimes they have a little last breath there. And so that was a really great example of a meteor. We have another aircraft flying across here, and another aircraft. And I'm just going to advance here, and here we can see, here I'm going to step back. Okay, we have an aircraft here, and now I'm going to advance a frame. Okay, and this appears here in one frame, a next frame, the next frame, and we can faintly see it in the next frame. So over 4 frames, we're talking about 2 minutes of actually seeing this object. And so that is a long duration for a meteor. In fact, I don't recall any meteors being 2 minutes long. And so this is probably a satellite. And we can also go and check some of the databases like Heavens Above and actually see, compare our timestamp and see where that satellite appeared. And you can actually usually resolve where that actual satellite is. And you can do the same thing with aircraft too, is you can look for a timestamp and you can look for where that was, and you can look in some of the aircraft databases and you will be able to actually see what that aircraft was in most cases. Some military aircraft aren't in the databases. Okay, so we have another aircraft going across here, another aircraft coming by fairly low here, another aircraft here. But if we look here, we have an aircraft here, and I'm going to step back a frame or two, and here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we can definitely see that this is a satellite going past here. So that was about 7 minutes. Okay, we have more aircraft here. You can see that they're on pretty tight schedules and flying fairly close together. Sometimes you'll see actually military aircraft flying in formation. Okay. A couple of aircraft down there toward the south. And I'm going to step back here a frame. Okay, if you look here to the west in this all-sky time-lapse, I'm going to advance one frame, advance one more frame. Okay, and you see right at the horizon, we have a fairly good-sized fireball. And you can tell that it's got the kind of tapered shape to it, and it's only last one frame in the time lapse. And so that's a fairly brilliant meteor. I was lucky to catch that one. Okay, and let's come back here. Now again, we're going to take a look at this one here, and we can see that it enters the frame here. We're going to advance. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so that satellite was illuminated for 6 frames. And of course, as it goes toward the middle of the night, the satellites become less illuminated because they don't actually see they're below the horizon of the Earth or in the Earth's shadow. And so we're going to go ahead and advance through some more frames here. And okay, so here we have several interesting phenomena here. Okay, if you notice here that we have a satellite, and I'm going to back up a frame or two. Okay, here's one first frame that we see it, and you can see that that is either a blinking satellite or rotating satellites, because it looks like a series of dashes. And then parallel to it, there's actually another satellite moving right along parallel with it. And that may or may not be the Elon Musk train of satellites, or it may be just a rotating satellite that is catching the sun and causes that kind of dashed look to it. Okay, again, we have several aircraft flying over here. And okay, we got a couple frames here that we want to look at. Okay, again, one frame. I'm going to put my cursor there. And so that's a single frame, and that would be a meteor. And we look at this one. And this is actually appears in 2 frames, but it does have the characteristics of a meteor because it may have appeared toward the end of the exposure, 30-second exposure, and been caught on the next 5 seconds 5 seconds later at the beginning of the next exposure. And so I would say that's a fairly high likelihood that is a meteor rather than a satellite. Okay, here we go. We step forward one more frame past that, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 objects appearing here. And as we advance a frame here, we can see that this one is probably a satellite as it goes up here, and we can kind of see its path there. And we have probably a satellite here, and then probably a couple meteors here. And so this is pretty interesting. And we have another satellite pass coming up here. We can watch it go across, and we had a good view of that. Aircraft again. As we're getting toward dawn, you can see that we're getting to see more aircraft and more satellites. So here we go. We can track this one. Okay, those actually might have been meteors, but we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, that one's a satellite there. That's probably a satellite because we can watch it track here. And again, we have a meteor here and a satellite here because we can track that all the way up through there. And so some of these satellites will basically vary in brightness as they go along their path. You can see this one, it may have something more exposed to the sun. And then we see it basically reappear back up here as it flares again in the sun. Okay, we have what is probably a meteor right here, and we have what is probably a satellite coming along here. And so basically, if you can see that it track over a number of frames, like that one, is that chances are that it's actually a satellite. And again, you can always usually check it against the satellite database and see, what satellite it actually was. And so, for example, the space station is usually fairly apparent, and some of these other satellites are a little less apparent. So, if we look at this one, we've got probably 2 meteors. They appear in single frame here, with one here and one here to the west. And that may be an aircraft, or that actually might be the International Space Station. I would have to check against the database first, but that appears to be a very bright satellite. So I might actually speculate that is indeed the ISS passing there. I would have to check it a bit. We're probably about 4 in the morning here. And so again, we have another final satellite pass here, and then it's going to start to get light. And that was the evening of the 8th and 9th of July in 2019. And so we looked at quite a few aircraft, quite a few satellites, and a couple really nice meteors. This is Jay from skylapser.com. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll talk to you later.